excited today to talk about the stoplight method of negotiating boundaries and agreements, especially around sex and eros and romance in relationship. It can be complicated and nuanced and dizzying, or it can be like fun and exploratory and playful, which is what I hope to support. So, a little check in to see that we're up and ready. I believe um, I'm having a conversation with my tech person, which is myself this evening. I'm actually in a home alone. For those of you that don't know, I'm Kamala Devi. I live in San Diego with my husband of 20 years and my 14-year-old boy who are off river rafting this week. They're um, having a summer adventure, which I think is really valuable at the stage of his yeah, it's just super formative, memorable father-son bonding experience. But anytime we go on these trips, when my husband's away or I go off to one of the retreats or intensives that I lead, there's often a conversation that we have that precedes our, like when the cat's away, the mice will play. And it's like, well, what does that look like? What's the relationship, what's going to enhance the relationship, what's going to enhance us individually growing, and then how do we not stretch each other or challenge each other too much. And so it's nuanced because whatever your boundaries are, whatever your relationship agreements are, they're always subject to change. And this is like one of the key, most important things is that this is an ongoing conversation. I mentioned Michael and I, when we started dating, we were both open relators. We were already coming from open relationships, so we had some experience. We knew how important it was to have verbal agreements as well as some written down. And within the first 6 months, we probably had like pages and pages of like, these are our agreements. And then at other times, it's like we were in such deep, trust or communication, or that we were just like, look, there's just the basic 4 agreements, and the rest is a lot of trust. And it's really important. It's not just trusting ourselves and trusting our partner and trusting the relationship, but like, okay, trusting that we have the experience and the attunement, and that we've had the conversation. So I don't recommend people just, make assumptions, because the assumption, if relationship agreements aren't discussed, if boundaries aren't discussed, then assumptions are usually the default of like, ooh, this is what it was for me in my past relationships, or this is what society says it should be. And that default relationship is really really non-creative. It doesn't come from your core. It doesn't bring out the best in you. And that's the bottom line. What we're talking about here is how can you and your partner negotiate the way that you want to be treated when they're, what are the things that they can do to you or around you or while you're away or to others that bring out the best in you and them in the relationship. That's really the bottom line, is what brings out the best. And every relationship has different things that'll bring out the best in them. So obviously this is like a touchy, emotional, sensitive conversation. Many times we don't know what our boundaries are until they've been crossed. And by then it's already too late. We're like, hurt and angry, and there's process. And so what's really powerful is when a boundary is crossed, that we take a moment, we look at a boundary as, okay, that's a gateway or a checkpoint to see how am I feeling, what's going on, what needs to be in place in order, or what communication needs to happen, what cleanup needs to happen in order for us to grow. So I will say up front that not only are boundaries and agreements made to be changed and to evolve as we grow, but they're also likely going to get, broken out of misunderstandings or out of like powerful exceptions. And it's important to have like, ooh, if this is not, if we're not able to meet this agreement or this boundary in this moment, what is the repair conversation? What is the learning that we get from that, and how to actually enter into the conversation in the spirit of, hey, I want to know how to be a better lover, how to treat you well. This is how I'd like to be treated. And I get that we're not perfect. We're human and we're going to mess up sometimes. So when we do, how do we recover from that? And we want to give each other the benefit of the doubt that we're wanting to treat each other the best we can. And we inform each other, and then we learn from those experiences and we clean it up. So over the years, what we found is that you don't want to say, these are my rules and I'm going to impose them on you. You're more like, this is what's ideal for me. What's ideal for you? Where do we overlap? And in that place where we overlap, when our Venn diagram crosses over, those are the things that we can agree to. So I'm a yes to this. They're a yes to this. Now we're in agreement, and it's different than I'm forcing this or imposing this or you need to do this. And there's also times when sometimes your bottom line is like, I really need this. And the other person might feel like, wow, I don't fully feel free. That's not an agreement. And at that point, it's important to say, well, what would it take for me to be in agreement with that? Maybe it's a temporary agreement. Maybe it's a if you do this, I'll do that. Or maybe it's we're actually best, we're not good partner selection for each other. We're not best suited for each other. So, the negotiations can be challenging. There's a lot at stake. And that's why I want to make it easy for you by using the stoplight method. So I'm sharing this now. It's come up this week with almost all my clients, including myself and my husband. And I think it's probably because the pandemic's lifting and things are opening and people are now, exploring or expanding, spreading their wings a little bit more. So it's actually a really good time. A solstice is coming up. You say, okay, let's reevaluate what are our relationship agreements with the way the world is opening up and the new season. And ideally, you look at it like a work in progress and that you set another time to reevaluate. So it's not like this is our till death do you part. It's more like we're doing this season. How about let's do it again at the equinox? Let's have these kind of quarterly reviews of how it's going. And this can be done with your primary partner, with other partners, with your family. Like this is actually even relevant if you're building a new business or you've got a co-teacher together, you're, co-creating. So what is the stoplight method? What we know for sure is that there are certain things that are red lights. Like that means stop, the relationship will cease to exist. And those often are like violence or abuse or lying or cheating. And, cheating needs to be defined by different relationships, but these are the things, like if you're doing these kinds of bottom lines, it's usually pretty clear, like, and in some cases it's, if you don't want marriage or kids, that's a bottom line. That's not if you're, like have a different sexual orientation than what I'm looking for. If you're looking for a type of for me, for example, like if you're monogamous, that's just not going to work. If you're polyamorous, it's not going to work. If you are really poly, but your wife is not and doesn't know, we're not going to play together. What are your red lights? Those are super clear. That's a blessings. We're not a match. Now, it's typically pretty easy if you've done the work to come up with the red lights. And I want to say that this is best done when you do it yourself. Like you journal, you self-assess, you feel before, as you get clear on this, you do this individually, your partner can do it themselves, or maybe you don't have a partner and you do it just as a solo practitioner, solo poly. This is my boundaries. This is what's important for me in relationship. And then it's so exciting to start to vision, what do I want? What do I want to create? What are we doing together? And so this is where you can say, I want the kind of relationship that goes, does growth exercises. We go to festivals together. We love to host, events, and we have parties and sensual puddles, and these are things that I'm just a yes to. This feels really good. And so that's the part where all the way up, all the way down, you're like, I'm a yes to this in my relationship. This is what I really want. And what about those things that some part of you is a yes, but some part of you is a no? So there are a lot of things that we're in a parts conflict about. And so that's when the yellow light comes up. It's, all right, some people, when we're driving, you're like, hey, I like to go slow and no adrenaline. So if I see a yellow light, I just like to stop. And some people, when they see a yellow light, are like, ooh, all right, yellow light, floor, let's go. And regardless of whether you're more cautious on the road or you're like intensity junkie, what's important to get is like, that's edgy. The things that are yellow are like a stretch. They're a stretch for me. They're a stretch maybe for the partnership. There's something that I have some past wounding about. There's something that I want to be okay with, but I'm not. And I'll say transparently up front, it's really important. I have such huge, like, generous, conscious, compulsive, like, desires for my partners. Like, I want them to shine and get loved up, and I want to see my husband like with a harem of, lots of attention. I want him to have everything he wants because it makes me happy. And my programming, my nervous system, my history, my wounding, like, is not always ready for that. Oftentimes, I've inherited a lineage that has a lot of jealousy. There's deep jealous program in my inner child. I was teasing my brother the other day. I have a brother who, like, as soon as I was born, my mom got pregnant. And so what happened in my neurobiology was, I had my mom's breast and I was getting all the attention. And then when the baby came, her energy started shifting as a pregnant mama towards the next baby. And I was in competition and jealousy at a young formative age with that. And constantly, jealous of my brother because he was a boy and I was a girl and he got certain treatment and I didn't, and like just different things. And so those family of origin imprints are so deep in me, even though my life choice now is to be, to teach liberated love, to have multiple lovers, to want for other people. I still have to tend to that early impressions and what indelible scarring happened on my nervous system. And that's just one story of many stories that that will constantly come up for me if the yellow lights are, like stacking. Now, here's the key. Yellow lights are everything that you're not a hell yes to or a hell no to. You're in a parts conflict. Doesn't mean you should be better or you should. It's just like, hey, this is just where it's touchy for me. And it's important to say, when I'm fully resourced, when I'm fully nourished, let's see a yellow light and we'll step on the gas and we'll go through it. But if I'm low resourced or I'm at capacity or I feel already stretched, or we've had a couple yellow lights in our relationship already, then it's time to go really cautious, because a yellow light or multiple yellow lights will turn into a red light really fast. It's like so scary to, have it stack. And then all of a sudden you're beyond capacity and you can't cope. And you suffer, your partner suffers, the relationship suffers. So, the first homework is to do this work within yourself and then when you're clear on it, you and your partner can do a little ceremony where you come together and you share and see where you overlap and what are the things that you want to agree on. These are relationship agreements. And some of them are boundaries. They're not even about the relationship. It's just, this is my boundary. So, how do we navigate that? And how do we take care of and attune to our partner is by really hearing what are their preferences, their aversions, their sensitivities, their triggers. All right, so just for fun, if you want some specifics, I've got my book, Sacred Sexual Healing, which I wrote with Baba Des, and we have a poly chapter. This chapter is available for you, free download, at my free gifts link. So I'm going to include that here. It's kamaladevi.com/free gifts or freebies. I think it's free gifts. I'm going to send you the link. All right, so these are just some examples when you're like, well, what kinds of things do I say in my red, yellow, green stoplight? And we have like 20 questions for setting boundaries in here, as well as like a bunch of terms of agreements that other people have used and found successful. So we've got a whole chapter on this, and we do workshops on it. But this is what caught my eye today, right? So like, let's see, where should I stop? Start. Okay. Are you, out of the closet about your relationship choices? Like, who are you allowed to tell and not tell? Like, some people are like I'm really transparent, and some people are really private. And is it appropriate for us to be in a relationship? And am I able to honor their privacy? And do I feel freedom of speech to talk about who I'm dating? Those kinds of nuanced things. It's not just sex, and that's about, how you like to be in a relationship. You also want to look at power and money issues. Do you require informed consent amongst all parties? Like, is it okay to date someone if someone they're dating doesn't know? Like, how about advance notice of potential sexual partners? Do you like to know ahead of time if someone is, going to play with someone else? What are your safe sex standards? And how long, are you dating someone before you decide to share that with, or how long are you interested or flirting or texting before you share that? What does transparency mean to you? Like, communication, is it immediately? Is it within a day, a week, or just if you think of it? Like, do you have time restrictions as to how often you want to see someone or others? Once a week, once a month, vacations? Do you have curfews? What about sleeping arrangements? Who's sleeping? If you're sharing multiple partners, it can get really complex. But in terms of if you're monogamish, I often like to say, okay, well, does that mean no kissing of anyone else? Are you okay with massage and sensuality? What about touching where the bathing suit covers? Because it is it's really powerful to be very specific around, oh yeah, I want to be sensual and cuddle, but where does cuddle and sensuality turn into sexuality? Like, it's a thing. Like, okay, we're moving now towards erotic energy, and it's orgasmic energy, and that energy, it's nuanced because you may not be able to see it from the outside, but you feel it, and maybe you're fully clothed. Is that allowed? And so being really explicit about where you're comfortable sharing and where you're not. So, I could go on and on, but it is important to say what are the consequences if these kind of agreements are compromised. Just really quickly, from the terms of agreements, we talk a little bit about fluid bonding, condom commitments, don't ask, don't tell, package deal, no drama. There's different kind of terms. What does that mean? Especially low drama. People are always like, I want no drama. It's usually the most dramatic people. And I have a whole new relationship to drama, being that I'm, at a reality show. I'm a recovering drama addict. So yeah, what does no drama mean to me versus you? Because some people really like intensity in their relationship, and how do you find that in a way that's win-win and not like constantly taxing someone's nervous system. All right, so I'm having a lot of fun with this, but I'm going to invite you to ask any questions you have. I really appreciate you, Shy. Oh my gosh, Shy from Leveled Up Love. Check it out if you haven't already. We've got a great intimate group of high-level lovers who are doing deep conversations like this one. And so go to leveleduplove.com. But he posted my free downloads right there in the chat on Facebook. And I don't see any questions, so I'm going to just say some hellos to those of you on Instagram. It's really sweet to see you, Roxy, Joey, Kitty, Chrissy. Thank you, Hedonist. Love my wisdom and my honesty. Thank you. I'm kind of blushing. He said I was gorgeous too, so I kind of censored myself. But it's really sweet to just have these Thursday candid chats with you. I'm looking forward to more soon. And good, there's Shy. Shy put a link to Leveled Up Love on Facebook. We'll have to add a link on Instagram as well. Roxy, she asks, how do you deal with heartbreak without taking it on out on your other partners? Okay, so what I'm getting from Roxy's question is that she's in multiple relationships. And I want to just say that one of the benefits of having multiple relationships, especially if we're going through a breakup, is that we do have the support. We're not like, oh my God, I've lost that person and I'm utterly alone in the world. It's like, no, I actually have other people that love me, that can nurture me, that can support me through the relationship transition, through the hardship, because breakups are hard no matter what. However, there's that delicate line where, okay, thank you for consoling me, for being there for me, but there's a line where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm being there for you, and maybe you're indulging, or it's taxing, or it's like, hey, I want to have fun with you, and you're just in your pain body because of this other lost relationship, and now it's starting to affect our relationship, right? So it's really important that we do the necessary self-care. Maybe that means hiring a therapist or going out with friends, but we crowdsource our need to mourn and get support, and not just put it all on one person. So that's the benefit of being poly. Whether or not you're poly, you can still crowdsource your needs. You can put it out on Facebook. Hey, I need a hug or a cuddle, or someone to listen, which is often so valuable. Just having an ear, or a shoulder to cry on. But that's my best advice, is that like heartbreaks do happen. We want to feel it. We don't want to stuff it. We want to break open, allow our hearts to break open, and sharing from a place of like responsible, like, hey, this is what's coming up for me. Are you willing to hold space? Do you have the bandwidth? Are you resourced? And if they're a yes, and they need to really be honest, then great. You have someone to go through it with. It can be super tender, super vulnerable, and it can actually bond you to your other partners, as long as you're really doing it to their capacity, in their container. All right, I'm going to take one more question, and then my battery's running out. Hedonist says, how do you strike the right balance between sensuality and sexuality? I believe it's a fine line and situational. Yeah, so good question. As a parent, I'm often looking at this sensuality thing, because children are so sensual and erotic and alive, and like there's always cuddling, and like they're so and I'm that way with a lot of people too. I'm super touchy, and when there's children in my space, I'm like, ooh, I want to be affectionate and sensual and playful, and I don't want to cross the line into what's sexual. So whether it's for the kids' sake that are in the household, or whether it's because I have an agreement with somebody who'd be affected by it, there's often for me a strong sense, and this is cultivated, right? So I'm in these spaces a lot. I get to practice it a lot. So I hone my sense of it. But it's a feeling of like, ooh, now I'm moving towards orgasm, or now I'm moving towards wanting. Like there's a desire that comes in that's a little bit more like penetrating. It's not just, ooh, that feels lovely and playful in the moment. Like sexual energy comes more with like, hey, this is a building energy or an opening energy. And so it is subtle. And I do want to say practice, practice at play parties, practice with friends, practice and even telling someone, hey, I'd love to have a cuddle, and let's find that line. Let's stay sensual. Let's find that line that's sensual but not erotic. And can we like ride that line, which is really fun too, to be like, oops, okay, we're right at that edge. But having consent to do that is often a really nice way to play with it. Okay, I have really enjoyed our talk today. Thank you for all the hearts and the waves, and I'll look forward to any future questions and our live stream next month. Mwah. All right, blessings.